Welcome to Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. I'm your host, Wynn, and today we're slicing into the movie that revived a dying horror genre with meta jokes, brutal kills, and a Ghostface who takes crank calling to a whole new level. Let's head to Woodsboro and see why Scream from 1996 still cuts deep nearly 30 years later. We start with Casey Becker answering the phone while making popcorn like our ancestors used to do. The stranger's voice is flirtatious at first as the subject turns to scary movies. Casey tells him her favorite is Halloween with Michael Myers. She's caught off guard when the mystery caller reveals he's watching her. Casey locks the doors, but her nerves are already shot. She hangs up, but the phone keeps ringing. When she answers the phone again, the caller shows his true colors and threatens to kill her, sending her running through the house, locking all the doors and windows. He then has her look outside where she sees her boyfriend Steve tied to a chair and looking like he got his ass beat. The caller gives her the chance to save his life by playing a trivia game with him. If she gets one question wrong though, Steve's ass is dead. She answers the first question easily. However, she gets a little too cocky on the second question. She was betting Steve's life that Jason Voorhees was the killer in Friday the 13th. Wrong. It was Jason's mother. Poor Steve. His consolation prize is getting to see his internal organs. The caller has a bonus question. It's a trick question though, as it mostly involves a chair flying through the patio window. Casey runs to the kitchen to grab a knife, and by now the popcorn is a flaming ball of fire on the stove. You know they'll never get that smell out. She sees someone inside the house, so she sneaks outside and sees her parents off in the distance driving towards the house. A person in a Ghostface mask attacks her through the window. Casey takes off running, but her attacker is much faster. He stabs her several times as her parents pull into the driveway. She's brutally murdered in the yard as they search the house looking for her. Eventually they find her hanging from a tree like a gruesome Halloween ornament. Later that night, we meet our main character, Sidney Prescott, who's chilling in her bedroom when her boyfriend Billy Loomis comes crawling through her upstairs window like he's Spider-Man. We learn her dad is going away on business for the weekend and Billy wants to fool around. At first she's game, and then she puts the brakes on. Poor Billy has to go back out the window like a jilted Romeo, but she gives him a pity flash to tide him over. The next morning, Woodsboro is buzzing with reporters, cops, and gossip. Everyone is talking about Casey and Steve getting murdered, while investigative reporter Gale Weathers is reporting live. During the day, the school principal, played by the Fonz, Henry Winkler, is working with the police to interview all of the students. After school, Sidney meets up with Billy, her best friend Tatum and her boyfriend Stu, and resident horror film fanatic Randy to talk about their interviews and the murders. Sidney gets home and makes plans for Tatum to come stay the weekend so she won't be alone. She tries to distract herself with TV, and that's when we learn she already has trauma from her mom's murder the year before, so that's enough TV watching for now. That night her phone rings and it's the killer calling. He immediately jumps into the "what's your favorite scary movie" routine, and Sidney doesn't scare easily, even when he tells her he's on the front porch. She proves she's not scared by walking out onto the front porch and finding it empty. To make herself a less attractive victim, she even goes as far as to pick her nose. Sexy, right? It got his attention because he immediately threatened to kill her just like her mother. That got her attention. She runs back into the house and locks the door. She's safe inside until Ghostface jumps out of the closet and attacks. Sidney dodges, fights back, and ends up barricading herself in her room. Ghostface tries to break into her room but can't get in. Just as Ghostface disappears, Billy appears at her window. Again. She jumps into his arms, telling him the killer's in the house, but then his cell phone falls out of his pocket and she looks at him much differently. She runs for the front door and is greeted by Deputy Dewey, who also happens to be Tatum's older brother. Billy is arrested on the spot. As he's hauled off in the back of the police car, Billy shouts that he's innocent. The police interrogate Billy, who does everything in his power to look guilty. I mean, look at that face. Dewey shows the sheriff the costume Sidney's attacker wore. Turns out it's sold everywhere and there's no way to track the purchases. For future trivia reference, the original costume name is Father Death. Outside the station, Gale Weathers shows up, hunting for camera time like a heat-seeking missile. She confronts Sidney as she's leaving, and evidently they have some history because Sidney punches Gale in the face. Hard. Tatum takes Sidney home for the night, and Sidney tries sleeping, but the killer calls her at Tatum's house to taunt her. By the time Dewey comes out of his room, the caller is already hung up. The next morning, the local news informs us that a man named Cotton Weary is on death row for the murder of Sidney's mom, and that Sidney testified against him in court. Sidney goes to talk to Gale off the record, and Gale thinks Cotton is innocent and she's figured out the murders are all related. Even in school with all the other students, Sidney still doesn't feel safe. How can she when you have jackasses running down the halls in the Father Death costume? Sidney freaks out and runs right into Billy. He's fresh out of the joint and still has fingerprint ink on his hand. His only concern is that Sidney hasn't been very attentive to him since her mom died. He even tells her that it's been a year and it's time for her to move on. Principal Henry is in his office chewing out a couple of students for wearing the mask to school and causing trouble. He destroys one mask by chopping it up with some giant-ass scissors. I mean, look at those things. He then shows a bit of a dark side as he threatens the students. Sidney enters the bathroom stall to calm down when two mean girls enter and make fun of her dead mom, proving how much people can suck. The girls leave and Sidney is free to come out of her stall. Her paranoia causes her to do a quick glance under the stall doors. Looks clear at first. Then she hears a noise and asks if someone is in there with her. She drops to her knees to check under the stall doors once again. This time Ghostface steps out of the stall closest to the exit. Sidney uses her powers of parkour to escape before he can grab her. Gale runs into Dewey outside the school and tries to flirt her way into some inside information on the investigation. Dewey is eating it up but doesn't give anything away. After school, Principal Henry is playing around with the confiscated ghost mask when someone starts prank knocking on his door. He's a bit jumpy and starts checking to see if anyone is hiding in his office. Just when he's feeling safe, the real Ghostface jumps out and stabs him repeatedly. As he lays on the floor dying, we get this great shot of the killer reflected in his eye. At the video store where Randy works, he's nerding out about horror movies with Stu. Billy's there too, and Randy thinks Billy is indeed the killer because he's seen a lot of horror movies. When Stu asks how he knows, he proclaims that there's a formula to it and that everybody is a suspect. His ranting gets a lot of unwanted attention, including from Billy, who questions that maybe Randy is the killer. And once again, Billy does everything to look like someone who could be a killer. The town is closing up early because the sheriff has declared a 9 p.m. curfew. Of course, this doesn't stop Stu from throwing a big party at his house. A new suspect has emerged when the sheriff tells Dewey that the phone records they pulled show the calls to Sidney were made from a phone number registered to her dad, who they still can't find. As the sun sets, Stu's house party gets underway. Dewey drops Sidney and Tatum off in front while he hangs out nearby. Gale and her cameraman Kenny even quietly show up but are discovered by Dewey. Gale talks him into letting her join him to go inside to check on things. Dewey and Gale enter just as Stu asks Tatum to grab some more beer from the garage. While Dewey is distracted talking to Sidney, Gale hides a remote camera to spy on the party. Tatum heads to the garage for beer and gets locked in. And it's kind of funny that Ghostface shows up and she instantly thinks it's Randy living out one of his horror fantasies. At first she plays along, but then he flashes his knife and cuts her arm. Shit just got real. She actually puts up a pretty solid fight and has pretty good aim, chucking beer bottles at him. Her escape attempt gets completely ruined though when she tries crawling through the dog door and gets stuck. It's a unique kill and takes very little effort on his part. The killer just pushes the button to open the garage door and then watches as it lifts her up. The whole way up, Tatum knows she's screwed. Once she gets to the top, her head and neck get smashed and twisted. So yeah, she's dead. It's curfew time, so some people are leaving the party. Sidney can't find Tatum, but Billy magically shows up at the front door. He's there hoping to talk to Sidney alone, and she agrees to go upstairs with him. Even Randy is dumbfounded that Billy showed up and that she would give him the time of day. Believe it or not, Randy thought he might have had a chance with her. Sorry, Randy, I don't think that would have ever happened. Billy or no Billy. Meanwhile, upstairs, Sidney and Billy have a little heart-to-heart that leads Sidney to finally give in and have sex with him. Gale's camera is working like a charm. There is a pesky 30-second delay, but at least she can watch Randy explain the rules of horror movies as they're watching the original Halloween on good old VHS. Professor Randy gets up in front of class and explains the basic rules to survive a horror movie. Rule number 1, don't have sex. Rule number 2, don't drink or do drugs. Rule number 3, never say I'll be back.
I'll be right back.
Randy gets a phone call telling him that Principal Henry's been murdered and his body is hanging from the goalpost on the football field. The remaining partygoers are excited and leave to go check it out before they cut him down. As they drive off, they almost run Dewey and Gale over as they walk down the road. They dive out of the way and accidentally discover a car sitting off the road in some trees. Turns out the car belongs to Sidney's dad. Dewey assumes he must be there to attack someone else. After they sleep together, Sidney asks Billy who he called with his one phone call in jail. Something still feels off about him. Trusting Billy is like trusting a wet match to start a campfire. You want it to work, but it's not happening. Just then, Ghostface enters the room and stabs Billy multiple times. He turns towards Sidney, bleeding all over his clean white shirt before collapsing on the bed. Sidney manages once again to escape an impossible situation, only to get blocked by Ghostface on the stairs. Since she's upstairs, the only way out is to climb out on the roof and then fall off the roof. Luckily for her, she lands on the boat in the driveway, right next to poor Tatum, still hanging out of the garage door all twisted up. Sidney makes it to Kenny sitting in the news van where they see Ghostface sneaking up behind Randy. They yell at the screen to warn him like he can hear them. Unfortunately, Kenny forgot about the 30-second delay, and by the time he realized it, Ghostface is there cutting his throat.
Oh my God! They've killed Kenny! You bastards!
Ghostface is only able to barely wound Sidney before she escapes once again. She's on the run when Dewey and Gale show up in front of the house. Dewey goes inside while Gale heads to her van, where she finds herself standing in a pool of blood, but no Kenny. When she tries to take off in the van, she can't see out the windshield. Probably because of all the blood leaking out of poor Kenny, whose body got tossed onto the roof. Gale wrecks the van, trying to avoid running Sidney over. Smooth move, Gale. Sidney runs back to the house looking for Dewey, who comes out the front door and promptly kills over on the porch. I guess that giant knife sticking out of his back is bothering him a bit. And there's Ghostface again. He retrieves his knife from Dewey's back and chases Sidney to his police car. She rolls up the windows and locks the door, but Ghostface has the keys. She gets on the radio and calls for help just before he gets a hold of her. But once again, she escapes. She grabs Dewey's gun just as Randy shows up, quickly followed by Stu. They're both pointing the finger at each other, and she's pointing the gun at both of them as she backs into the house and locks the door on them. I mean, can you blame her? Now, if you've never seen this movie and don't want any spoilers, I suggest you stop watching this video at this point. There are major spoilers ahead, and I'm not responsible if you continue on. It suddenly gets quiet outside, and then Billy comes stumbling down the stairs. We all thought he was dead. Sidney thought he was dead too. He goes for the door, but she stops him because Stu and Randy are out there. She gives him the gun, he unlocks the door, and Randy comes rushing in talking about how Stu is flipped out and gone mad. Billy closes the door and turns around with a grin on his face.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
The mask finally drops. Billy is one of the killers. Stu strolls in and reveals he's the other one. These two idiots are very proud of themselves. Two killers, you ask? That explains a lot when you stop and think about it. Billy explains they murdered Sidney's mom for having an affair with his dad, causing his mommy to abandon him. Stu is giggling the whole time like this is the world's darkest group project. Stu even throws Randy's rules back in her face, saying she has to die now because she had sex with Billy. Then Stu has a surprise for her. He leaves and returns dragging Sidney's tied up father into the room. Their plan is to frame her dad as the killer in a murder-suicide, leaving them as the only survivors to be in the sequel. These crazy bastards then take turns stabbing each other to make it look good. Billy takes it a bit too far and stabs Stu just a little too much. This scene is jacked up and a bit funny thanks to some great lines from Stu.
I'm feeling woozy here.
While they were busy playing stabby stabby, the gun went missing and Gale was the one who took it. She aims it at Billy, who doesn't seem to be bothered in the slightest. That's because the safety is on. He takes the gun and kicks her out the front door, where she gets knocked out and lands next to Dewey's body. He's about to finish her off when Stu realizes that Sidney used the distraction to escape. The phone rings and it's Sidney using their voice changer. She called the police on them, so now they have to rush if they're going to pull this off. Stu is bleeding out and takes a seat while Billy murders the couch. While she has Stu on the phone, she asks him what his motive is.
Peer pressure.
He then worries about how pissed his parents are going to be since she called the cops. You almost feel sorry for him. Eventually, Sidney comes out of hiding in full Ghostface costume and stabs Billy with an umbrella of all things. When he goes down, Stu comes charging in. For a guy that could barely stand a minute ago, he suddenly has a lot of energy. They have a brutal brawl. She fights back with everything she has. A kick to the groin, a bite on the hand, breaking a vase on his head, and finally dropping a tube TV on his head. Things are quiet in the house as Sidney picks up the mask. Then Randy jumps up, still alive and happier than ever to be a virgin. Unfortunately, Billy is back up and pissed off. He gets on top of Sidney and is about to stab her when Gale shoots him. She remembered the safety this time. Sidney takes the gun from her as they all approach Billy laying in the hall. Randy reminds them that this is usually when the killer comes back to life for one last scare. And right on cue, Billy lunges up only for Sidney to put a bullet in his head. So when all is said and done, Sidney, her dad, Randy, and Gale all survived a crazy night of murder and mayhem. Oh, and Dewey somehow managed to survive too, as we see him being put into an ambulance. Gale immediately starts reporting live with the new cameraman, R.I.P. Kenny, because she's not about to waste a good ratings opportunity. This movie was a game changer in the horror genre. The movie was a huge hit and was the first time that I saw them checking ID at the doors to the theater auditorium, because so many kids were trying to get in to see it. Hell, I saw Scream in the theater 4 times when it came out. A couple of times just for me, and the other couple of times to take younger relatives who were too young to get in on their own. And that wraps up Scream, a sharp, funny, and a bloody reinvention that made slashers cool again and started a new horror franchise. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, drop your favorite Scream quote in the comments, and subscribe for more retro carnage every week. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time on Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.